Hello, hello. This is Andy over at Falco Canine Academy on this, what is today? Monday. All day, I know it's Labor Day, but all day I've been wanting to call it Veterans Day, and I'm not sure why. I think it's because I don't know if I've ever taken a Labor Day off. I probably should one of these days. We're going to be talking about how whether or not your attitude affects your dog's behavior. And to some of you, this is going to seem very obvious, but I have some stories that will go even hopefully a little bit deeper. And it may be one of my very own absolute secrets to the success of our dog training program. And I'll talk a little bit about that too. But first, a couple things I want to make sure and tell you about before we get started is that we have registration open for the Animal Wellness Summit. It's an online summit. It's over a 10-day period, November 10th through the 20th. A number of big name people in the pet wellness industry are heading it up. I'm just happens to be one of the speakers and one of the promoters for it. But it will be in November. It's going to be dedicated to horses and cats. You just simply register. It's free thing. All you need to do is click on the link that you see in the description there where it says to register, go to the Animal Wellness Online Summit. So just click on that link. It's created by animal lovers for animal lovers. You'll learn for 10 days straight, all online, from the comfort of your home, from 50 plus passionate experts dedicated to horses, dogs, and cats. So just go ahead and put your name in the, when you click on the link, you're just going to ask for your name and email address. That is so they can send you the links to be there, to be able to watch. And of course, it'll be up to you which ones you watch and how long and that kind of stuff. But it's for 10 days. I would not miss it. If you have any interest in dogs whatsoever, or cats or horses, and I'm sure at some point there's going to be a program that you'll be able to refer to find out what it is they're talking about. That is, I'm just guessing. I'm not saying that for sure because I'm not the one presenting it, the whole thing. I'm one of the presenters and one of the people promoting it. So Animal Wellness Summit, it's November 10th through the 20th this year, 2017. This is the first annual. And they're going to be talking about everything that you need to know about the wellness of your pet. So just simply click on the link in the description, register with your name and email address, and they're going to send you the links to be able to watch and to be a part of it and to probably be able to ask questions, I'm assuming. So you just click on the link and it'll send you to a page where you put your name and email address. Pre-registration is free. All right, so go ahead and take care of that. So let's get to this discussion that I want to bring up. This is in the same vein, I guess, as my frequently asked questions that I'm tackling a couple days out of the week. This is in more of the area of should ask question. I can't say that I frequently get asked this question about how does my attitude affect my dog and their behavior and that kind of stuff. It is more of this is a question that people should be asking because it is huge. It is a lot bigger than you actually think. And I know there's some of you out there say, of course, if I'm mad at my dog, he slinks around, or if I'm happy, my dog's a lot happier, but it's more than that. And so let's first just talk about, names or nicknames as you give your dogs. Now, you may think this is crazy, but over the 30 years of doing this, I have seen names given to dogs that just empower the dog, so to speak. And people like it when they call them certain names. And so when the people say them, they say them with such sweetness and such love and such affection and such respect that those dogs, over my history, not every time, but over my history, those dogs tend to do well. It's because overall, I think the people who give their dogs such names that, make them feel so good, the human being that is, when they talk to their dog, is people that have a good attitude towards their dog. But when you are looking for progress, either you're coming to obedience training because you're just obedient and to be, understand rules and boundaries and be really good at that and make you proud when you're in public, that kind of stuff. Some people just, that's their goal. They give their dog a really cool name that they love to say. My police dog's name was Falco, as you know, because I named the company after him. I also have a book named after him, and I have my pen name for the books that I've created and used on television is Falco. So obviously, I have a very fond feeling about that name. As a matter of fact, I was given the choice of 3 or 4 dogs. I can't remember the number now. It might have been 5. But when the trainer who had selected the dogs for me to look at said the name, there was another handler too who was there looking for a dog. But when he said the dog's name, Falco von Aramis is his whole name, I said, that's the dog. I know without even seeing him. I know that's the dog for me. It was something about that name that I really enjoyed, and I thought of falcon right off the bat. That majestic birds that fly through the air. They're hunters. The police dog would be hunting for bad guys. It was just something that triggered in my mind, in my heart, in my soul that was the dog meant for me. And as time went on. Early on, the dog, we were given very crappy training in the beginning. We went, it was supposed to be a 4-week program. We hardly did anything during those 4 weeks. It was a very popular, it's still popular dog training facility, and hardly anything was done during that 4-week period. We had not even done a building search, which was probably the primary thing we use police dogs for, is to search buildings for, after burglaries and robberies. And that was the one thing we didn't do one until the very last day. And that was the day of certification. That was the first time we ever even entered the building with a dog, which in our training was one of the first things you did, right? Because it's the most common thing you're going to do. Well, needless to say, as I hit the street, one of the first times I sent my dog after somebody, which was an auto theft suspect that was racing through downtown Anaheim and crashed. It was a Corvette that crashed into a bunch of parked cars after going over one of the loops there on South Street. There's a bunch of hoop-de-hoops there. What do you call those little bumps that they have on railroad tracks? And when you hit those at higher than 30 miles an hour, your vehicle was going to leave the ground. And as I was pursuing him down South Street, westbound towards the downtown area, the guy got airborne in a Corvette, all fiberglass. It literally exploded when it hit the ground because he was going about 80 when he hit one of the very first bump. And I thought, this is not going to end well. He hit a series of parked cars out of it was like a movie, this completely destroyed vehicle with shrapnel all over the place. A smoke coming out of everywhere. This man kind of comes out of the vehicle and starts running like you just wouldn't believe it if you weren't behind the vehicle. And I didn't believe it, and I was sitting there watching it. The guy goes running down the street. I send my dog after. I send Falco after him. Falco runs up and he's like, that I'm used to somebody wearing, and you can see him looking. And then the dog peels off and he went and peed on I think it was a mailbox that you find in a front yard. And then I had to run and tackle the guy and take him into custody while my dog was just kind of sniffing around doing other stuff. Now, that was not a great start for my dog. Well, I was determined that this dog that I chose because of his name, I was going to figure out how to make this dog a police dog. And I was very, very motivated because I did not want to fail, right? I had wanted to be in the canine program. I love this dog. And so from that point on, I did everything. And that's one of the reasons I became a dog trainer, is because I did everything I could to learn how to make my dog become a police dog. That really, he was not really probably properly selected, was not the right dog for the job. But I went through a whole series of mind shifts in the way that I thought about dog training. I traveled to Europe and Canada, met with other trainers, and really figured out how to make a difference. The other thing is that I never gave up on the dog. My attitude towards that dog was to make him the biggest, strongest dog that I could possibly make him through my words and through my actions. Now, he wasn't going to change physically, right? The only thing that I had going for me was that I was going to say, oh, you're the biggest, baddest dog. Come on, let's go get him. And I pet that dog up. I built that dog up. I talked about him being the best and the biggest and the strongest. And over time, that dog became the best police dog. He will never be surpassed in the city of Anaheim in regard to the number of arrests he had through finding people and biting them and breaking up fights by biting them and saving my life when the guy was hiding behind the door with a gun who was waiting to kill me. He had 70, almost 80 street bites, which again will never be touched. I think the next closest one is maybe 30, all legit, and hundreds of arrests where he didn't have to bite people. found thousands, if not close to a few $100,000 worth of narcotics in seizures, up into the millions of dollars. So it was a lot of that really had to do with my attitude that I was not going to give up, that I every time I talked about this dog, I talked about him being the best. I talked about him not failing. I talked about, not in the sense that if he failed that I was going to be disappointed, just in the sense that I did not want this dog to fail. All right. And I remember as it was yesterday, the thing, Bill, go get him, buddy. Come on, you're going to get him. Come on. And it was just like encouraging this dog, even though there was a little bit, I know that he doesn't understand what I'm saying, but I know that he could feel it in the energy. And at that time, that's what I felt, that if I had the positive energy, if I did not give up on him, that he would be better. So how does that translate to you and your pet dog? Well, considering that's where I started, I began to now, as I became a trainer and began training other law enforcement agencies, I began to see the difference between one handler and the next. I had handlers who were motivated to be the best that they could possibly be. I saw handlers that really loved their dogs, they respected the dogs, and they would do anything to make that dog better. And their attitude when they were with their dogs was similar to what I had with my dog. I had other handlers who they always wanted somebody else's dog. Thank you, Austin. I appreciate that. I had other handlers who always wished they had the other guy's dog. Like, I wish if my dog was like that, I would be really happy. I wish I had that dog. I wish this other dog had been selected for me. And I had handlers who had multiple dogs, and they were never happy with the dog they had, and they continued to fail from dog to dog because they were never happy. They were never satisfied. They never wanted they just wanted the dog to be, right? They just wanted the dog simply to be the best. And they always wanted to complain. They always wanted to complain, well, he's a little too short. He's not as fast as your dog. He doesn't, he's never going to learn to let go of the equipment, and it's just not going to happen. So what happened in each one of those areas is the dog failed to let go. The dog failed to improve. The dog failed to do searches in dark places with slick floors because the handlers never had the attitude that the dog that they ever had was good enough, that the dog that they had was a piece of crap, as they would say, or they would call the dog dumb shit, or they would call the dog a bunch of names. Come on, dumb shit, let's go. Right. And right off the bat, I can tell the guys who had negative names for their dogs often struggled with the behaviors that needed to be trained and to be consistent and needed to be good. And they often had problems in certification. They were often the ones that failed. The guys who had good attitudes towards their dogs. And again, you can simply say, well, they just had better dogs. No, I'm telling you, I know for sure that I've seen good dogs with bad handlers become really bad dogs. You take that same dog, give it to a handler with a good attitude, and that dog suddenly thrives and becomes strong and becomes good, becomes really good for that handler. And I can go on with these stories that I can relate to in law enforcement. And now we go into pet dog training. And how is this now as far as you're concerned? And I get back into where I have a large number of people over the years that I can look at as my testing ground, in that the people that had names for their dogs that were not good, right? I have people, the dogs that were kind of like cuss words, like, I don't want to say it because the people don't want to talk about their dogs, but anybody that had their dog with a name that was a negative name, they often had issues, whether it was aggression or the dog couldn't do the, many of the obedience behaviors and they couldn't get them to stick, or they would get them to do them in training because they would have to have a better attitude because I would be kicking their ass there on the field saying, no, come on, let's have a good time. Get your dog. No, come on, he can do it. You can do it. I know you can do it. If you can do it, he can do it. And I would motivate them. And then the dog you would see the dog, change. I would take the leash. I would show them, look at with this dog, he can sit and down and stay. Right. And I'd hand the leash to them and the dog would not sit down and stay. And I'd take the leash back and say, your dog can sit down and stay. And then for a brief moment, they would go, oh, he can. And all of a sudden their dog would do it. And then, right. Because then they go back to their old attitude. And so I really do think, just like any relationship, as much as I talk about relationships, I think that I was divorced, but I should know this stuff. But you have to have this attitude with your dogs. You have to have this attitude when you begin to get into training, and really have a purposeful mindset that you are going to make a difference in your dog, that you're going to make a difference in the relationship between you and your dog. Hey, Martin. Greetings from Argentina. I love it when we have an international crowd. All right. Yes, Martin, I'm glad to have you from Argentina. We're going to be stealing Aldo from you here very shortly. He's going to be coming. I just saw a message for him that We're going to be getting Aldo down here in November, or maybe it's October. I can't remember. I got to look back at that message. But the attitude that you have is huge. If you want to change the relationship, if you want to stop having that love-hate relationship with your dog, you have to really have a loving and respectful relationship with your dog that doesn't get into the area of hate, that you just hate spending time with them, that you hate going to training. Anybody that hates coming to training often doesn't finish training. Right? They often don't make it. They come the first day and the second day, but they'll come because they feel like they have to, or because animal control says if you don't get into some training program, we're gonna seize your dog. Or in many cases, what I've had one spouse say, if that dog doesn't get better, we're getting rid of him. And I've had those kinds of dogs, and so that if you have that attitude, that is not one that can change to a place where, you really want this to work out, that you really want this dog to succeed, and your attitude, he's never going to do it, then he's never going to do it. You are never going to do it. You're never going to follow through. And so you need to have the attitude that is one of success, right? This isn't necessarily a Tony Robbins event right now that you have come to. I'm just telling you that if you have a poor attitude towards your dog, and you've given him a nickname that is such a negative one that every time you say it, you're reinforcing what you don't like about your dog, instead of reinforcing what it is that you love about your dog, then there's no hope. It's not going to change. Sally Frost. Thank you, Sally Frost. Oh, I got more stories. Gosh, there's, I'm going to get to the little secret that I have as far as dog training in just a minute, but there's so many times that I could look out on the field, and Sally Frost is one of those stories. And I'm glad she came on here, because that is one of those, and I've told the story a lot, and this is probably not a story that she likes me to tell all the time, but I remember the day that she came and her clothes were torn. She had scratches on her arm, and I always like to say that her bra strap was showing and kind of falling down, and her hair is messed up, and she's just going, help me with this dog. I don't know what to do with my dog. But she did not, with all that, she was there because she loved the dog. She wasn't there because she was giving up on the dog, right? She came there because she wanted to make a difference in this dog's life. She read a Newfoundland that was just kicking her ass. I'm sorry, I've said like 3 or 4 times, people who hate class usually don't finish, right? They don't. But not Sally. She came, not only did she finish the class, she had a dog that was completely different than when the very first day that we got there, not because of me, because of our training staff, but because of her, right? All the information in the world about how to train their dog and what tools will buy stuff. But if they don't make the shift, if they don't take what it is that we give, nothing will ever change. If they have the attitude, this ain't gonna work. My dog, I'm never gonna be able to take my dog to lazy dog. I want those dog that is there. Nastiest, horrible dogs in our training program. Gina has had horrible, nasty dogs in our pet dog training. Derek has had to deal with some of the worst dogs. And we've seen them, right? We've seen them make a transition with the right handlers. With the wrong handlers, nothing changes. It never changes. That's why we can't give guarantees per se the outcome of the training. It is impossible for any dog trainer to give a guarantee because the handler, the dog owner, is in it to win it. If they're not in it to win it, then they're not gonna. We can give a guarantee that will give you the information that you need to succeed. Get through the 7-week program and you follow the directions that we give you, and you do the homework, because we always tell people the homework may be the most important part. If you don't follow through, then you're not going to succeed. If you don't follow through with the right attitude and change those negative names that you've given to your dog to the positive ones, and it could be fluffy, it could be foo-foo, it could be whatever it is, as long as it doesn't make you feel like, the piece of crap dog. You're never going to get better. How many times have we heard people who've grown up with parents who just say, you're a piece of crap. You're never going to succeed. You're always going to fail, right? And this is humans, it either causes them to be successful because nobody's going to tell me that I'm going to fail. It's kind of like a little bit of where I was never good enough type of attitude from those types of parents. That was, World War II era parents, and that was kind of the way that they were brought up. So they brought us up, and that it's very, it's very unclear which way you can go, right? It was hard in the beginning. I was afraid to get in front of people and talk. I was afraid to get up in front of people and read. I never, in the beginning, thought that I was going to amount to much, but then but that's because I'm a human being, right? And I can make those decisions. Dogs, if they're stuck with somebody that hates them and doesn't think they're over, the chances of that dog getting better and becoming a healthy, fun, loving part of the family is very slim. All right. So if you can take what you've heard about being raised in a family where people just talk negatively about never going to win or never going to succeed, that you're going to be always be, then you have to somehow come out of that with your own to succeed. It doesn't really have that option, choice of what they eat every day. Right? Dogs don't have a choice of what collar you put on them. They have to kind of live with the one you put on them. It better be the right one. Dogs don't have a choice of what shampoo you use or how often you comb them. So there's a lot that's out of the dog's control. Right? And so even as they get older, as human beings, as we get older, we can then begin to make choices and do things differently. But dogs are kind of stuck with whatever it is you give them. If you don't love your dog enough to give them a decent food that they can thrive from, and so the dog has good nutrition, if they don't have a love with you that you make sure that they're cared for on a day-to-day basis, and you touch them and care for them and show them affection, and again, give them a name that invokes good feelings and not bad feelings, it is going to be hard for that dog to change his attitude. Right. As a dog trainer, that is the secret, right? If you are a dog trainer, that you look at every situation that you come into, and I'm talking to you, the dog trainers out there, and even some of you in the rescue and shelter business that have to help a dog become to get into a home where they're going to stay for the rest of their lives, and your job is to do that with the human beings. This is one of the things that you need to pass on, and it's the secret of dog training, and that is your attitude is the most important thing. Right. When you go into a situation as a dog trainer, that's why many dog trainers pass their dogs on to us, is because right away they hit that wall where they go, you know what, with this dog, I'm going to fail. With this human being and this dog combination, I'm going to fail. Your attitude, if you're going to be a successful dog trainer that is going to make the difference in especially dogs that need help, they need help from you to talk to the human beings to make a difference in their training, right? The dog needs your help to talk to the human beings. The dog doesn't need the help from you to make them better, right? The dog will never be better unless the trainer is speaking to the human being in a language that they understand and giving them the tools that they need to have success. One of those things is changing the human's attitude the best that you possibly can. You may not ever be able to. Sometimes it's very hard to change. But the secret is your attitude as a trainer. You need to start with an attitude of, I can make a difference in this dog's life. And so you're going to pass it on to the human being. You're going to the human being, hey, I believe this dog can get better. I believe this dog can succeed. I don't think this dog needs to be euthanized. But the dog will get euthanized if you don't do things differently. If you don't change that dog's name from asshole to Spartacus or whatever, Falco, or even Fluffy, if you want to name the dog Fluffy. You can't have a dog with a negative name. Have I heard the dog name asshole before? Yes. I can't tell you how many times. Or butthead, all right? Or dumb shit. Sorry for all the cussing. I know there may be some kids listening, and I'm so sorry. But these are the names that I hear people give their dogs, and law enforcement and dogs. And you cannot have a dog, and you're going to say, well, my dog, that's because you're maybe saying it from a different perspective. Okay, but I can tell you that there's more often than when you're using those kinds of names for your dogs that I may have to come back and beep some of those names now that I'm thinking about it. You have to have an attitude adjustment by your trainer. The trainer's job is to train the human being. Train the human being being this aspect of that you need to want to make a difference. And I've had these discussions. If you've not had this discussion with your students as a dog trainer, then you're missing out, right? Where you sit down and say, listen, I've seen how your body language changes when it comes to dealing with your dog, right? I see how you kind of like lean over the dog and you get tense. I can see how your face gets crunched. I can see how your voice changes, like, oh gosh, darn it. You need to point these times out with your human beings, because this is going to be the secret to their success. You can't leave that alone and say, well, put this pinch collar on, or put this choke chain on, or put this flat collar on and do this, right? You can't do that and leave that without touching it. You have to touch it. You have to talk to them. You have to tell them that you see why this isn't working. This isn't working is because you have the wrong attitude for success. You must believe that your dog is going to be good. You must believe that you can make a difference in this dog's life. You must believe that in the end, you are going to have a loving and respectful relationship with your dog. If you don't believe it, it's not going to happen. You will not stick around. You will not stick to the progress. As Sally Frost said, is that people who hate class usually don't finish. And they hate classes because they think they want everybody else's dogs. I've seen people in class go, well, if my dog was like that, it would be different. You know, why didn't I get that dog? Right? You've already set yourself up for failure with the dog you have, right? If you want somebody else's dog because they're good, it's not going to work. I can almost guarantee you, if we were to switch dogs and for 30 days give you the dog that you think is good and give the people the dog that you think is bad, and you reverse that, you would, at the end of 30 days, if you didn't know any better, if you didn't know them and we were able to start from there, you would go, I wish I had that dog. Because now the bad dog is good because they're with somebody with a good attitude and knows how to take each day with a challenge of success, of being successful, right? You start off an exercise in a bad attitude, like, oh, we're never going to do this. It's never going to succeed. And you dog trainers that are out there that are watching this, that is your responsibility. That is where you're going to be different than every other dog trainer that's out there, that you are focusing on what is it going to take. It's not always the tools. It's not always the leash. It's not always the collar, right? It isn't always stepping off your left foot heel and stepping off the right foot means stay, or that the right shoulder needs to be in line with the left leg, right? It's not just that. Some of the most important times in my career have been when I've taken somebody aside and said, listen, there's police officers and it's human beings and detection dog owners. And I've said, this is not for you. Yes, that is not easy to take somebody into a room and say, this is not for you. This career that you've decided to have with this dog is not for you. This dog that you have is not for you, right? This is not going to work with you. We have tried for several weeks to make a difference, and we've tried to talk to you to get you to do A, B, C, D differently. And what's stopping you is your attitude. What's stopping you is that you want somebody else's dog. What's stopping you is that maybe you are mad at your abilities and think that because you can't do these things, because you don't see how it can make a difference, because you don't believe in it, that it's not going to make a difference. If you don't believe, then it's not going to happen. You have to believe in yourself. You have to believe in the process. You have to believe in that what we're giving you is honest, good information that's going to make a difference in your life. And that is the only thing that's going to make a difference, is that all of those things with your attitude, with your positive attitude, with a name that you speak to your dog with, that gives you a positive thought, a positive feeling when you say that name. Every time I said my police dog's name, other than that one time that I can think of, when I was mad at the world, other than that one time that I know that day that I said his name and I was mad, I said his name in a way that I felt it, that I felt, man, this is the dog I'm supposed to be with. And I'm getting a little teary-eyed as I tell the story. Looking at Sally's picture there. Every time I said his name, it was a good feeling. Like, it's hard to say beautiful without feeling that there's something positive, right? You can't say the word beautiful without knowing that it's positive, right? You can't say fantastic without saying fantastic, right? There's no way of saying it without feeling that it's something very good or very positive. All right. So that's the thing that I'm talking about. And I know that I've probably rambled on and went into some areas that I'm kind of repeating myself here, but you got to look at all these ways. And I just really want you to know that this is super important. And I tell people all the time, and Sally knows this because as she was one of our students as a trainer, is that if you are in a bad mood, then it's probably not time to train. It's probably time just to sit with your dog under a tree and pet your dog, right? Don't give him any commands. Don't ask him to do anything. Don't spend any time with your dog in a place where you think he's going to. So don't take an aggressive dog to a dog park if you're having a bad day, right? Because it's not going to go well. And so you should not train when you've gotten in a fight with your spouse, unless training it actually calms you down and is the thing that actually makes you better. That's something different. But if you're angry, if you're mad, if you have a bad attitude, then training your dog is probably not. Spending time with your dog be the best thing to do, or not doing anything with your dog because maybe you're not at that place yet to where you can feel a positive vibe from being with your dog. All right. So this is, again, it is the absolute most important thing as a trainer is to understand this thing before you venture on to your next student. Remember that your job is to change their attitude about their dog so that they will follow through with the information that you give them, and they will continue through training when you're not around. Really, really important. Do not take this lightly. Austin Meadows, what do you have to say? Again, dog training is all about handler training. Of course, yes, it is. It is so much about handler training. It'll never stop, right? There's no, there's a few trainers that I know that are horrible with people and they continue to train. And I say, well, why don't you just do simply board and train and then have somebody that you employ that can now take the dog that you've board and trained, and now they work with the human beings during the stage where now you have to get them on the same page as the training that you conducted, right? Because there's some people that are fantastic with dogs and they're just horrible with people. I've seen it in horse industry. I've seen it in the dog industry. You obviously see it in the crazy cat industry. Sorry, crazy cat people. But there are just some dog trainers who just have horrible attitudes with people. They just don't understand what it means to be a dog trainer. Being a dog trainer means you're a human trainer. That flat out. If you are not interested in working with human beings and you want to work with dogs, then simply do board and train and find somebody else to do the post training with human beings to tell them, what it is they need to do with the dog, and make sure, again, that they understand. Because if you don't have a good attitude, it's really going to be hard to convey that they need to have a good attitude, right? In the time they're with their dog. Understanding that, hey, listen, I know that this has been a struggle with your dog. Do not put yourself into a situation that you're going to fail because you're going to be reminded of why you don't like the dog or why you didn't like the dog, right? Start off by going to places where you're going to have success. So go, late at night somewhere to a place where there's not a lot of dogs and go for your walk, maybe, perhaps. Or early in the morning before anybody gets out and go and visits these other places. Find a place where you can do your obedience in a place where there's no chance or hardly any chance that you're going to run into a situation where you're going to revisit that place where your dog lashes out until you get the basics down, the ground floor laid with your dog training, so that then you can begin to step into those places where you're going to go. Do that first, because if you don't, you're going to easily slip into that place where you don't like your dog. Right. So don't jump. People often, I don't know why this is, where people suddenly want to jump, well, let's see how this works. Let's take the dog to PetSmart. My little dogs, and they go to PetSmart, right off the bat. No, don't test. Get it solid first and then slowly build up to the places where you're now going to challenge yourself with your dog. You must work up to those places, right? Do not jump from, we've had 2 days of training at Falco Canine Academy. Let's see if this worked. No, it takes 4 to 6 weeks to train a behavior, as long as you're consistent and you put in the time to do it, right? 4 to 6 weeks at minimum, if you're good. And it could take up to 8 weeks. It could take up to 10 weeks. If you're good and you're consistent, that kind of stuff. Don't do anything that's going to set you back, because remember, you're building the relationship. Everything that I talk about in regard to training, it doesn't matter what it is, whether it's police dogs, detection dogs, pet dogs, there has to be a relationship between the dog and the handler. There has to be that relationship, and you have to have understanding. Your dog has to respect you as a leader, has to love you as a leader, and you have to love your dog as a subordinate and respect them as a fun-loving bundle of love, but yet a subordinate, but in a way that is a loving and respectful relationship, right? It's all about relationship. Find it, Canine Detection. Hey, Andy, worked today with Ollie on downstay, and he did well. Nice. Is one of our bed bug detection dog handlers. Nice, very good. Yeah, and same there, Chris. You need to have go through each thing in that that you're going with your dog, especially when you're going to work with your dog, that you have to go in with that feeling of success. And even when something doesn't happen the way that you want it, even when you get to that customer's house and maybe things don't go the way you want it, that setback is going to be less than if you go there with already a bad attitude, right? It's hard because I have handlers who they're very sensitive, right? They struggle every day with a good attitude, period, right? And so, I got to go to this customer, and is it going to go well? And of course not. There's going to be right. And so already you're setting yourself up for failure. So if you go do a search and something doesn't go well, now you're way back here, right? But if you go and, hey, buddy, let's go. We're going to go find some bugs. We're going to go do this. We're going to have a good time. We're going to help this person who I can tell over the phone is probably not happy, but we're going to do our best to make them happy, right? And you go there and you go, hey, and the more somebody is angry or sad, the more I smile. Now that can backfire, but you want to smile and say, listen, everything's going to be all right. We're going to do our very best. I know that you don't believe in bed bug detection dogs. I understand that. I can tell by our conversations that you're a little skeptical, that word. Why can't I say that? Skeptical. Shoot, I can't say the word. That is really weird. Here I am live to 2 billion people on Facebook. You're not a believer, and but I want to teach you, educate them, and you get them to a place where maybe their attitude changed a little bit. But if you go there already with a negative attitude, it's going to be much harder. Now you're going to try to work a dog. You're right. You've already got a bad attitude. The person, doesn't believe in you and thinks you suck, right? And now you're going to try to take this dog in there and try to do a search and have success. It's going to be very hard. I'm going to tell you right now. I've been in all those situations. Trust me, I have been there. I have been, I went to a crime scene. The Colombians. If you've been watching Narcos, right? And those are some of the cases that I worked on as a narcotics canine handler. The very same ones that you're watching there in Narcos. They were here in the United States, and we're working some of those cases. And I remember the press was at this home in Anaheim, and I'm trying to think of all the stuff that I can. I can tell you. And so I arrive at this home, and the press is there, DEA, ATF. Lieutenants and captains that are never at search warrants ever. They're never there, right? But we bust down this door, we go flying in, we set up some flashbangs, and everybody's laying on the ground. They got them handcuffed, screaming and yelling. And I can feel the pressure, right? I can feel the pressure before we even do anything. My dog's barking. His attitude is different because he can feel the intensity in the air. Everybody, the cameras are there. The helicopters are flying above, the press helicopters and the police helicopters. And a lieutenant, it might've been the captain. I can't remember if he was captain then or not, but he comes up to me and he says, listen, we need your dog to alert in the backyard. That's the worst thing you could say, right? No, we don't. He doesn't say, hey, just do your best. We know this is this is kind of a weird situation. We got cameras here and that kind of stuff. What we need you to do, Andy, is search with your dog, the interior and the exterior, do your best, and just let us know what you find, right? That's the thing I needed to hear. Not, hey, we need an alert in the backyard. If we don't get an alert, we got to let all these guys go. We got the press here. We need something. Do not let us down. Do not fail. Right. Then I'm going, what? Are you kidding me? So now this whole thing, right, is laying on my shoulder and my dog's shoulders. My dog even said, what? What? What do you mean? What if there's nothing here? What if, which they were very good at that time. The Colombians were so good at setting us up, setting law enforcement up, putting a little, what do they call it? Now I can't think of a word. Now that I can't say the other word, now I can't think of a word. But setting us up with decoys. There it goes, like a decoy of some sort. Saying that this is what they're we're going to have a big deal. Putting some informant out that really was just giving us bad information. That was very well known stuff that was happening. But for whatever reason, they believed this one, and it was not that hot out. But I was sweating. I was soaking wet. Sweating, searching this backyard, and my dog would not search. He was peeing on everything, and he had found, I'm telling you, he had searched. He had found so many bad guys. He had seen so many vehicles and narcotics and hundreds of thousands of dollars in narcotics related money. And here we are in this backyard, helicopters flying above, the press with their cameras over the fences here in downtown Anaheim, brass from all over the police departments, and then DEA and ATF are there, and they're just watching me search. And my dog would not do anything and pissing in the backyard. And I literally almost got on my hands and knees and started doing an aggressive alert on this place where I could see that something had been buried. And I can see that it was a former hiding location of narcotics. You could tell by the discoloration and the different kinds of dirt that was on the surface than on the rest of the surrounding area. And I almost got on my hands and knees and sniffed the ground and began scratching because my dog literally was doing nothing. And it was one of the worst days of my life. And so I could not get my dog to alert, even though I tried. And nothing was working for us. Did we find something there? I was so now looking back, I was so out of my mind, just not happy with the situation. I believe we did find something, but there was nothing buried there, and that was basically why my dog was not alerting. Right? I was trying to convince him to alert on something that wasn't there. So they dug a hole. It was loose dirt, so you could tell that there was once something in there, but there was nothing in there to be found on that particular day. So it's not like he missed anything. But based on my attitude, which was one of like just total pressure and I was not happy. My attitude was bad. He wasn't searching. He was so nervous that he was peeing everywhere and pooping everywhere, and the cameras were rolling, and it was a very bad day, mostly because of my attitude. And I could not get past the pressure that I was feeling that we needed to do something that wasn't possible. There was nothing there for us to find. There ended up being something in a vehicle in the garage, enough that we were able to at least take a couple of guys to jail, but it wasn't the mother load that they were expecting. It had already moved out into some semi-trailers. We later did a search and found, I can't remember, it was like 50,000 pounds of cocaine and about $500,000 in the semi-truck in a hidden compartment. But that was later on. But there's that story. Sorry, I didn't mean to go on that whole story. But the whole attitude there was that here's a dog that was well-trained. The dog had already had success. The dog had already showed not only myself, but everybody else around us that we deserve to be there on this call, on this case. And because of my attitude, it wasn't a bad attitude. It was an attitude that of just like total pressure, completely changed the outcome because my dog didn't know what to do with that energy that was feeling from me. Right. And so your attitude is that energy that dogs can feel. Right? The dogs know when you're mad, right? People often think that the dog knows that you're mad because of something they did 5 hours earlier, and usually it has to do with, poop in the house or something like that. It's no, because when you walked in the door, you smelt the poop, and of course now your body language changed. Where's that? And so you're talking, and now the dog's like, oh, see, I know that you did something wrong. Well, the dog knows that because of your attitude and because of your body language and your voice, more than they go, oh yeah, I forgot I crapped 5 hours ago when you were at work. No, it's your attitude. It's your body. Dogs can feel it. They can see it. Dogs are masters at reading body language. We know this, right? And this is what we teach in our class. All right. I went on a very long rant there with a couple of stories. So I hope that was helpful. Dog trainers, help your handlers that you're training understand that they need to have a positive attitude. That should happen on day one. Let's go. We're going to have some fun. We're going to make a difference in your dogs. Really, this starts with you, right? You explain to them that it starts with you. You need to have a good attitude with your dog. If you have a bad name, a nickname to use for your dog, get rid of that nickname. We're going to change that nickname. We're going to say that we're going to give our dog the best name that we can possibly think. Think of the most fantastic thing you can call your dog, and call your dog that thing, whatever that is. Change that. No longer call your dog dumb, whatever, or stupid, whatever, right? Change that name. And so that you can begin each day as you begin your walk with a dog that you already have given a name of power, and that you're giving yourself power that even if he fails, even if he does bark at another dog, you go, you know what? You're not going to do this next week. We're going to work through this and we're going to get this to stop, right? And then you change directions, you change whatever it is you're doing, and you go on to the next step, right? It'll be easier to transition if you start from a place of good attitude, positive awareness of how you're feeling and what it is that you're projecting on your dog. It'll be much easier to progress as you go through this if you change your attitude, both as a trainer, both as a dog owner, right? And then the combinations will come together. All right, that is it. Thank you, Find It, which is also Chris. Thank you, Austin. Appreciate your comments. Sally, if you're watching the replay, feel free to also comment, because I do see those later on, and let me know what you think about these stories. Don't forget to register for the first annual online summit for, oh shoot, I always forget the name, Animal Wellness Summit. The Animal Wellness Summit. It's an online summit for 10 days, November 10th through the 20th. Click on that. It's free. It's not going to cost you anything. Click on it. It's free, and get registered. That way you can get the links that you're going to need so that you can watch the online summit wherever you're at. If you're at the beach, or if you're at work, on your break, of course, or you can listen to it while you're driving. Just make sure and register for the Animal Wellness Summit. It's for all animals. Well, not all animals. I don't think it's for fish. It's for dogs and cats and horses. You're welcome, Sally. You're the best too. All right. That is it for me. Don't forget to register, and I will see you at the next one. All right. Take care. Talk to you later. Bye.